Hello, and welcome to Surviving and Thriving. Today's guest is someone who has spent her career sitting right at the intersection of medicine, mission, and money. Joy Sorensen Navarre is the president and founder of Navigate, a national firm that helps physicians and healthcare systems across the country make sense of student loans and turn them into a strategic advantage instead of a source of stress. She's a recognized expert in student loan management and has walked alongside thousands of residents, fellows, and attending physicians as they choose jobs, evaluate contracts, and align their loan plan with the kind of career and life they actually want. Joy built Navigate around a simple but powerful belief. You find your purpose where the world's greatest need and your greatest joy meet. For her, that joy is helping physicians protect their calling while building a secure financial future, whether they choose an academically safety net hospital, a rural community, or a high-octane private practice. When she's not deep in spreadsheets or talking PSLF strategy, you're likely to find Joy on a Minnesota lake, fishing or for panfish, with an ultralight pole and a 6-pound test line, which honestly is not a bad metaphor for carefully managing big student loan balances with the right tools and technique. Joy, we are thrilled to have you on the Surviving and Thriving in Residency podcast to talk about how residents can connect to their first job search to a smart student loan strategy. Welcome, Joy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you so much for the invitation to be part of this podcast.
Of course. So let's kick it off with some questions. And your first question is going to be for an intern who has never really looked at their loans. What's the very first step you recommend they take to get oriented?
Yeah, great question. So, the first is just understand what you've got. Because often when folks in medical school are focusing on their education and the future practice, it's just a matter of accumulating loans, right? Without kind of a sense of what does this mean for me? And once you're an intern ready to have a little money, right, to be able to start paying your loans, you'll have a 6-month grace period after graduation before your loans become, your first payment is due. So take that time, say maybe in October of your first intern year to look at your loans. Go to studentaid.gov. Pull up your list of loans. It's all very clear there for you. And look to see what is your loan balance. What are your repayment plan options? Lots of online tools to be able to calculate what repayment plan is going to be best for you. Now, that might change in the future, but if you have federal loans and you don't refinance to a private loan, I'm sure we'll get there. Charlie, way too many details here, but yeah, take a minute to look at your loans and run some calculators to decide what's the best approach.
And that's scary. I mean, that's a scary first step, is opening it up and actually seeing it and looking at it and knowing that you're facing that, right, in 6 months. So that's got to be an overwhelming feeling.
What we find is that sometimes physicians don't realize that while they were in school, the loan balance increased because of the interest accumulating. Mm-hmm. So unsubsidized loans, a lot of the loans they might have taken during undergrad, that interest doesn't accrue. But the graduate loans, interest does accrue. And so that is often a big surprise for folks because with large student loans, let's say you have $250,000 to $300,000 of medical education debt, probably interest is $1,500 to $2,000 a month that's accruing. So it can go up quickly. And so that, it is right, it can be frightening. I'd always say, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. There's a plan for everyone.
Yeah, even myself, I would probably go to open it and then walk away and say, wait, I'll give myself a minute and maybe I'll do this tomorrow. Maybe I'll do this the next day. I don't want to look at this quite yet, but good advice there. So what are the key differences between staying in federal income-driven repayment versus refinancing into a private loan, especially in terms of flexibility, protection, forgiveness options, things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So most physicians have mostly federal loans. There are some that have private loans. If you have private student loans, those interest rates are really high. And so typically we see physicians with private student loans refinancing those loans to a lower interest rate as soon as they can. That's only for private loans. But for federal loans, often we see, almost always, we see borrowers remaining in those federal loans because of all the benefits, right? So they're not refinancing to private loans until their future careers are set, because the federal loans offer so many opportunities. You can be on an income-driven repayment plan. Let's say you're a medical resident, you're making about $60,000 to $70,000. Your payment might be $200 to $300 a month instead of $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Much easier. It would be impossible with the other ones, right? Much easier to manage during residency. You also have many months of forbearance, meaning you don't have to pay that month's payment if something came up and you're not able to make it. On the private side, you won't have that. So those are just a couple of the most practical benefits to keeping your federal loans, especially during training. My key is always keep your options open. This is a big financial burden, a challenge. Let's wait to see how life unfolds before we make big decisions on student loans.
Yeah, and stay on top of the changes and options available to you, right, to save the most money. Yeah. Yeah. So some residents feel like PSLF is the only smart path, while others are skeptical. How do you help someone decide whether PSLF is a good fit for their actual career paths?
Charlie, do you remember when bell bottoms were in style way back when? Did you ever have a pair of bell bottoms?
Barely. No, that was a little that was a little before my time. But I have. I remember my older siblings wearing them. Yes, certainly. Yeah.
So just like fashion, wide ties, narrow ties, bell-bottom pants, they come and go, right?
Well, I think bell bottoms are back.
Well,
That's what I'm
totally.
hearing. They're totally back. I think even worse than before. Like, I think now they're like 4 foot wide. So,
I think you're right. Let's
Yeah.
get some. You probably have some already, Charlie. Public service loan forgiveness, PSLF, as you mentioned, is similar to that. When we first started consulting with physicians on student loans back in the 2010s, people didn't know about it. No one had achieved any forgiveness yet because it requires 10 years of payments, and the program started in 2007, and so it took many years until people really believed that is it a real thing, right? People thought it was imaginary, and could they trust the federal government? And then starting in 2017 through 2020, we saw a lot of people starting to achieve the forgiveness. And now what we often hear when I speak at residency programs is the sense that they must, in order to have a successful financial outcome in their career, they must use public service loan forgiveness. So like the pendulum swang from nobody wanting it and believing in it to now majority of residents that I talk to have it on their playlist, which I think is good. It's good to have it on your playlist, but it's always really important from what we've seen consulting with lots of physicians to really run the numbers, because there are a lot of amazing job opportunities that might not be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. And so if a physician has in their mind, I must have a job, the only job I'm looking for is one that's PSLF eligible, they are cutting out some amazing life opportunities, right? So it's always important to run the numbers, and some of the things you would think about would be and we've got calculators that will do that for folks, so please, if you're listening, we would love to be a resource for you. So please consider making a call to us. We'd be happy to assist. But what we do is we run the numbers. We compare your offer with a PSLF eligible employer, plus any signing bonuses, et cetera, to a private practice opportunity or a for-profit opportunity, because public service loan forgiveness requires employment at a tribal or governmental or nonprofit organization. And so what it would look like in the big picture would be typically a resident or a physician would make smaller payments for those 10 years. During residency, like we mentioned, the payment will be maybe $200 to $300 a month. And then at a starting attending position, let's say family medicine at $240,000, for example, the monthly payment might be $1,500 or $1,600. I don't have my calculator open, but in that ballpark. And as a salary would increase, the payment would increase. These are all income-driven repayment plans.
So live like a resident has become a mantra in physician finance. How do you help residents think through the trade-off between aggressively paying down debt versus strategically using PSLF or other forgiveness?
Mm-hmm. So funny you asked that question, because yesterday I was doing a presentation to Overlook Family Medicine, and that question came up. And so we pulled out the calculator and we just ran the numbers. And that's really what it takes. I think not all of us, but a lot of us like to see the data, and that data then can inform the decision. And I personally think that's the only way to go. I've got a good friend who's much more, let's just live and see what happens kind of person, right? And life working out great for her. But for me, I need to see the data to inform my decisions. And so we pulled out the calculator live during the presentation, and he said, well, let's use this number and a certain loan balance. And interest rates now are getting lower, which is really nice on the private refinance side. He was planning to refinance. And so he said, let me see a term of 8 years, to pay him off in 8. Let's see it in 5. Let's see it in 3. Let's see it in 2, and anytime you reduce the time period, the term you're going to be paying, the monthly amount goes up, right? And so I think for the 3 or the 2-year term, it was like $8,500 a month or some huge number. But in his head, he was telling the group, well, I'm thinking about living like a resident. Right? So on that $60,000, $70,000 salary, but making the $240, definitely that $8,000 payment a month is doable. Huge commitment. And he didn't disclose to the group his rationale for this, but having worked with a lot of doctors that do this strategy, I know that for some, the burden of the loan is just so great, they want to be done as soon as they can to have that sense of freedom. I totally get that. Totally. There's no price tag on that, Charlie. So probably it's not a large percentage of folks that we work with that make that choice, but significant, 15% probably of physicians that we work with are making that choice.
Yeah, I love it. I think I may have shared this story with you. A couple of years ago, I went to a resident conference, and it was so well put on, but they had one learning section was they had a panel of 3 guests, and one had just finished residency, starting their first practice. One was kind of like 10 years in or so, and then one had been practicing for, I think, over 20 years, and it was fascinating. So the resident who had just finished up literally ate peanut butter sandwiches all during residency, spent every dime they could. They lived at home, which was a huge cost saving, but they spent every dime they made on their student loan repayments during residency, came out of residency owing nothing, and they paid them off. And of course, they didn't have as much debt as some of the other panelists, but still, the person 10 years in still had significant student loan debt, but not quite as bad. They were close to paying theirs off. But then it was the 20-year person who was still paying on their loans, only because so much happened, right? They finished up their residency, landed their first practice with the best intentions. I'm going to pay on these student loans. I'm going to pay more than I need to. Marriage happened, children happened, a bigger house happened, more cars happened, and it was just one thing after another, opening a practice. And so those student loans just got pushed back to minimum payment. And this was before any kind of forgiveness plans were out there. And so it's just fascinating to see the 3 and how how they all had, so many options, but how they handled their student loans was amazing.
At Premier Health, we care, we teach, we innovate, and we serve. As a private, nonprofit academic health system, Premier Health has joined forces with Wright State University and the Boonshoft School of Medicine to lead the advancement of academic medicine in Southwest Ohio. Our partnership fuels medical education, supports vital research, and drives exceptional clinical care for our communities. Explore the many professional and personal advantages of practicing medicine with Premier Health and Wright State University at premierhealth.com/careers.
So live like a resident. I mean, a resident can do it. They could, I just think that's a great way to look at this, is live like a resident. It's not for everybody. I understand that. I understand that. So.
Right, and sometimes residents, is the term non-traditional, and they might be married and have kids, or they might be supporting their parents or other things, and then, that's not a strategy. There is no extra money in some situations, and so then we find an alternative plan that is a staged plan, right? So during residency, make the minimum payment or be in forbearance, and then once the attending salary is there, aggressively work on the student loans.
Sure, yeah. So if an offer includes loan repayment or a sign-on bonus tied to loans, what are the key questions they should ask to understand the fine print and any strings that may be attached?
Yeah, it is so amazing to see how employers are stepping up to the plate to offer student loan assistance. I can remember it wasn't so long ago where employers acted as if the student loan was the physician's problem, rather than seeing it as a structural problem that we're all complicit in, right? And so it's great to see how many employers are supporting student loan assistance. So it's really important to be clear about what the offer is. So there might be $100,000 loan assistance from a potential employer. Is it after my first year of working there, or do I get it like a sign-on bonus? Is it something that comes, $20,000 a year for 5 years if I commit to working for 5 years, right? So many employers use different structures for how they give their loan assistance.
Sure.
We've worked with some, I can just think of 2 physicians who the structure for the payment was not working for what their plan was. And so we've actually seen 2 physicians, candidates, decline offers of loan assistance, kind of an unusual situation. But in most cases, once a physician candidate will understand what is being offered, then it can be just an amazing support to them for paying their student loans.
Sure. So kind of tied to that, how do you recommend residents compare 2 offers when one has higher salary, the other has strong loan assistance or PSLF eligible employment?
That is so tricky, Charlie, so tricky, because it's hard to do a direct comparison when the variables are different. So we have set up our calculators to be able to do that. And often we get into the weeds and look at all the details. So it's really important to remember that the student loan assistance is always taxable, right? And so it's taxable in the year that it's received. So when you're thinking about an income-driven repayment plan, it'll be based on your last year's income. And so let's say last year you got a signing bonus, you have your salary, you got your signing bonus and a student loan, some kind of assistance. You got to put that all together in order to calculate what your monthly payment will be for these loans. And sometimes people aren't aware that, they make the calculation based solely on their salary, kind of forgetting that, that $10,000 or that $100,000 signing bonus loan assistance is also taxable, and it's going to increase my adjusted gross income. So that's kind of the first thing to make sure you put into the calculator correctly. And then the other is to calculate what is the potential earning differential. And that's, like Charlie, that's very hard too. Like, is it an RVU setting? Is there other kind of bonus? Is there a guarantee? All those things are sometimes hard to figure out. And so, like, just do your best guess, right? But then compare what do you think is going to be happening. And then with the numbers speak really loudly. And when we're doing calculations, I'm thinking of a case where there was a physician, she had multiple offers, and we thought that this one offer was going to be not the best for her, and we thought it was a for-profit opportunity, not a nonprofit, and she really was thinking public service loan forgiveness. And when we ran the numbers, there really wasn't much of a difference because the for-profit employer had a larger bonus to assist with the student loan part. And so always important to run the numbers and to see how those numbers shake out.
Yeah. And don't forget those sign-on bonuses when it comes tax time, because I think that can be sometimes overlooked or forgotten. So much is going on at that point. So you've worked with thousands of physicians on their loans. Is there a particular resident or early career physician story that really changed how you think about this kind of work?
The one that comes to mind to me right now, it was a physician who, because of her family situation, didn't have a lot of financial support in school, right? And so she had to work on her undergrad, but still took out some loans. During her medical school, she had to take out more loans. There wasn't the financial support available from the family. And so she was feeling really weighed down because her loan balance was pretty high. Okay, we commonly see $200,000 to $400,000. That's a very common range for a student loan, which is a big number. Any of those numbers are big numbers, Charlie. Think about that. But we often see $500,000, $600,000, like large student loans. And then sometimes we hear physicians thinking, okay, I must go to a place, like some place that's very rural, because often those rural locations, nothing against rural locations, Charlie, knowing where you are. Rural locations can be great, but if you're an urban person, right, or if you have a different idea of where you want to practice and what kind of medicine you want to practice, it might not be a good idea to go work in South Dakota for a Lakota tribal community, right? Or some other place where it's not the best fit for what you're hoping to do in your career. And so if you're but often at those places, there's big student loan support. And so she was thinking that she might have to, actually, that was the only thing on her list of potential jobs, were those jobs with the huge student loan support, but in very rural places. And she really was hoping to go back home to work in a more urban setting. So we sat down with her and started working out the numbers, and she realized that there are for-profit employers in her hometown that qualified for public service loan forgiveness that would give her the same overall support on her student loan without having to go to a place that might not have been a good match for her, the practice that she wanted to invest her life into. So that story comes to mind, and it's almost all our stories are happy ending stories, because always we found there's a good plan for someone, right? These good opportunities, given all the support available right now in student loans.
Mm-hmm. And I think, the big part of it too is quality of life and happiness and avoiding burnout and just being your best self and thriving sometimes is not worth it financially, like you say. I don't know if you remember, there was a show on like in the 80s about the doctor who had to practice in Alaska.
Okay.
And yeah, So, I mean, and it was just a little tiny community, and he has moose walking down the street in front of his office, and he's a city guy. And, but I think, you really do have to think about quality of life as well as the financial piece. And, are you and your family going to be happy? Can you really make it?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know until you try a place. We have a client who got a great offer out in a rural, very, very rural place, and they were also urban people. But it was an offer they felt financially they couldn't pass up, and so they took it. And they ended up loving it, raising the family, right, becoming part of a new community. So, yeah, there's amazing stories. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut on those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And even here in rural Appalachia, I work with physicians all the time who relocated from bigger cities, from out of state, came here, and they'll never leave. They've fallen in love with the whitewater rafting, the skiing, the hiking, the national park, and they absolutely love it. And it's a lifestyle for them. And they didn't realize it was something they were craving when they lived in the bigger cities. But once they got here, they figured out that's what brought them happiness. So it works both ways,
Hello, I'm Georgia Scott from Practice Link, and I'm excited to introduce an upcoming podcast from the Practice Link Media Network, MD Bookshelf. My new weekly show will invite physicians and healthcare professionals to share the books that help them push through burnout, find clarity, or see their careers in a new way. Honest conversations, unexpected reads, and a little inspiration along the way. MD Bookshelf, launching soon.
Let's talk about a little bit. You're in Minnesota. You live and work there. So how has watching physicians care for vulnerable patients in your community shaped the way you think about student loans, career choices, and service?
Yeah, I tell people I'm a proud Minnesotan given what's happened in the last couple of months here. And the physicians I've talked to here, it's been very painful to watch them realize, a lot of their patients with chronic illnesses have not been leaving their homes because of the situation in Minnesota. And so the idea that we can support physicians like separate from the practice of medicine, but on their own financial decisions so they don't have to worry about that, that really gives me a lot of joy, right? So I can't help with what's happening politically. We can't help, with the practice of medicine and the stress there. But when you have a solid loan plan and someone to call when there's a problem, it really reduces the stress on physicians. And I think it frees people up to do their best work. And that's probably what I'm most proud of in this moment in Minnesota, is that all of us have found a way to contribute back to mutual aid, and including our physician friends that are right on the front of things.
Sure. Yep. And speaking of Minnesota, you have to have some really rural locations there as well, right?
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
Boundary waters, all the lakes. Let's go fishing, Charlie.
Let's go. I'm ready. Anytime. For a resident who feels ashamed, overwhelmed, or behind on their loans, what's the one mindset shift or practical step that tends to unlock a sense of control on that situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, in our culture, let me know if you agree with this, that money is hard to talk about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
it is.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of emotions with money. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when we sit down virtually with a physician, they'll tell us that they haven't talked to anybody about their student loans, not their fiance, right, not their parents. It's something they hold very privately, very closely. And so one of the first things we do when we sit down and talk to folks is just have them take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. We're going to find a solution to whatever the situation is that folks are feeling so strongly about. And I think that looking at loans as a math problem rather than as a moral failing is maybe not the right word, but as a character problem, can be helpful, right? These loans are just a math problem waiting to be solved. And so let's figure out what the formula is and what's the plan that's going to work best for you.
Nice. Well, so tell me, if you could give every first and second year resident one simple checklist to follow between now and graduation for their student loans, what would be on it?
All right, so first would be to know your numbers. Like, let's just do that math, okay? Pick the right repayment plan for you for this moment. Don't think that you got to be you're not stuck in that plan, right? But hold it loosely, keep your options open. If you're on a federal income-driven repayment plan, every year you need to recertify. Tell the federal government how much money you made the year before so they can recalculate your payment. Keep yourself organized related to public service loan forgiveness, meaning, send in that employment verification once a year. Make sure you send it in after your last day of residency, so that last month of residency counts towards public service loan forgiveness. And then, don't make any big changes on an empty stomach. No, without that too, but don't make any big changes without really running the numbers. That the biggest issue would be don't refinance until you know for sure what your career is going to roll out to be. Don't close the door on public service loan forgiveness until you're sure that's not in the cards for you. Those would be the things that we would want to make sure that people are thinking about as they're ending. And then you didn't ask this, but what's coming to mind is just what we've seen recently, and this would be for folks that are currently in repayment. Maybe they've been in repayment for 2, 3, 5 or more years. There has been a huge backlog of processing the public service loan forgiveness employer verifications and any changes to repayment plans. And so if you are a listener here and 6 months ago or 12 months ago, you submitted some kind of change, either an application for a change of repayment plan or an update on your PSLF employment verification, you need to send that in again. Even though you sent it in once 6 or 12 months ago, we've had folks that recently resubmitted their forms and they've come back just like within 2 weeks. So that's just a recent learning in the last month. So that's good news because processing is happening again. But if you happen to have a stuck application, just consider it like down the river and do a new one. And likely it'll be processed quickly because that's what we're seeing right now.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, that's good to know. And I think too, some great advice, which is really simple, is don't compare yourself to others. I think with social media and seeing your maybe your colleagues on social media buying a new home or buying a new car or living a different lifestyle, then you feel like you don't know what someone else is going through or what they're doing until you walk in their shoes yourself. And so I think with social media these days, it's very easy to try to compare, and at the end of the day, beat yourself up over things that really shouldn't affect you at all.
Right. So true, Charlie.
Yeah.
And I have a story that came to mind that a new borrower came to consult with us. And she said, I don't know why I'm having such trouble. My roommate, she's told us, her roommate had met with us and done a student loan plan. And she said, well, my loans and situation are exactly like my roommate, so I'm just going to do exactly what she did. And it turned out there were just 2 details that were different that she wouldn't have known. And so hers was turning out differently. And so it's very similar kind of advice that you just gave, which is, I like to say, like snowflakes. Every loan situation is different. It's like you need to have your own plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, Joy, tell us how residents can get in touch with you, how they can learn more. What's your website?
Yeah, thank you. We're happy to do a free 15 to 30-minute conversation with anybody who's listening today. Whatever question you have, or if you just want to like double check, am I doing the right thing? Please take us for a test drive. That's what that free 15 to 30 minutes is. And you can find us on our website, navigatestudentloans.com. And just click on physician and then click on the link to schedule an appointment. Also, if you're on the Practice Link Resource Center, you can click there to find us. We have some articles there and lots of great things available on the Practice Link site too.
Yeah, and watch for us on the road at national conferences, and hopefully we'll see you there. Joy, it's always a pleasure. It's always fun, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being a guest today and giving all this wisdom out to the residents and medical students out there are learning a lot today as well.
It was my pleasure. And I'm wondering if we can talk about the scholarships.
Oh, yeah, for Practice Link, of course. Yes, of course. So, we started the First Practice Fund in the spring of last year with 6 scholarships offered by Practice Link, and they are $2,500 each. And we had originally in the spring we had 6 categories. So 4 of those initial scholarships went out to residents and fellows. 1 went to an APP and 1 went to a medical student. So for last fall, we had our first sponsorship by Premier Health out of Ohio, a great partner for us. And they actually sponsored 6 scholarships, and Practice Link decided to add on 3 more. So we gave away 9 scholarships for the fall, $2,500 each, to residents, fellows, and students and APPs. And we're getting ready to launch that again in March on National Doctors Day. We will open that up again. And not sure how many we will offer. Definitely 6, a minimum of 6. But we do have, of course, Navigate has sponsored one of those scholarships for the spring. Super easy to apply. They are based on, I think, 5 essay-style questions. And I love that part of being able to give back and getting to connect with the winners of those scholarships and hearing their story and just watching them, go through and succeed and just be incredible people. And I'm really looking forward to see where they all land one day. But it's been a great experience for us, and thank you, Joy and Navigate, for sponsoring that for the spring.
I'm really proud to be a sponsor of that, Charlie. Thanks for the invitation. And I think that anytime we can support folks that are giving their lives to care for others, it's a good day.
It's a good day. It is a good day, yes. And that all ties in with the student loan balance, right? So, you might use that $2,500 scholarship for moving expenses or for rent, but the hope and goal is that, you will be able to cut down on a little bit of debt and maybe free yourself up. So, yeah, every little bit helps.
Sure does.
Yeah. So that wraps up today's episode of Surviving and Thriving in Residency. A huge thank you again to our guest, Joy Navarre from Navigate, for sharing such valuable insight and encouragement. And thank you for listening. Residency is a journey full of challenges, growth, and moments that test you, but you're not alone in it. Keep showing up, keep learning, and most importantly, keep thriving. For more resources and support along the way, be sure to visit us at www.practicelink.com. We have a lot of great free resources for residents, medical students, and fellows, and APPs. And until next time, take care of yourself, stay connected, and remember, you're becoming the physician you've worked so hard to be. Thanks for listening.